And now recently I've reported that the DNC has thrown Senator Bernie Sanders a bone by letting him pick 5 of the 15 people who will write the Democratic Party platform. Now that's never happened before. So when it was announced, progressive groups and even people like me were like, yay, all right, more influence in drafting the party platform. But I also said that, hey, we shouldn't get too optimistic, because remember, you can write the most progressive platform in the world. That doesn't mean you have to follow it. And so it might not actually have that much of a meaning, right? But nonetheless, Bernie Sanders took it as an opportunity to pick some very progressive people. I mean, you've got environmentalist Bill McKibben, you've got Brother Cornel West, you've got Keith Ellison, the first Muslim congressman, and you've also got Native American activist Deborah Parker, and you've got a pro-Palestinian Zogby, this is his last name, can't think of his first name for some reason, bad with names today, but look, he's got very progressive people on his platform committee picks. So that's great. Now there is something missing though in those picks, and that is labor representation. Now that is not a coincidence. At a recent news conference, Bernie Sanders has revealed that the DNC had actually vetoed one of his picks for a key labor ally, and said that he was told not to pick anyone from the labor movement. He said, quote, "What we heard from the DNC was that they did not want representatives of labor unions on the platform drafting committee." That's correct. So who did Sanders try to pick? Well, according to the Wall Street Journal, Sanders had tried to include Roseanne DeMoro, executive director of National Nurses United, on his list of preferred platform committee members. Now DeMoro, talking to the Washington Post, said, quote, "He told me that he really wanted me on the committee to advocate for Medicare for all, especially." Now, National Nurses United is one of the groups pushing for Medicare for all, and that's why they endorsed Bernie Sanders to begin with, right? And that's one of the reasons they endorsed him, because Bernie Sanders believes in Medicare for all, and that's what he's trying to push. Now, according to Sanders and DeMoro, the DNC said, hey, we don't like your pick. We don't like your union. We don't like Medicare for all. And we don't really care about organized labor either. So we're going to veto your pick. Pick somebody else. Fascinating. Now, what's interesting is that, DeMoro, obviously a woman, right? It would have made the picks 3 men, 2 women. Now the picks 4 men, 1 woman. As far as that, DeMoro had said, quote, "I think that was a setup. It fed into the Bernie bro narrative and meme. Oh, look, Bernie picked 1 woman. How sexist. He's a sexist." I love that. Because even she's like, hey, wait a minute. This just feeds into that narrative, that the bullshit narrative that you guys have been pushing the entire primary, that Bernie Sanders is a sexist Bernie bro. I mean, that has been the narrative for a long time. And she's like, yeah, well, that makes sense. That's why they didn't want me on the panel, even though Bernie Sanders had picked me on the panel. And now she also adds that there were articles about how he chose 2 people who were anti-Israel. One of them being, I believe, James Zogby. Who's a pro-Palestinian activist. Now, Bernie Sanders, when it comes to the issue of Israel, he believes in the defense of Israel, that it has a right to exist. I mean, he's fucking Jewish, after all. But also believes that Palestinian people should have human rights. That's not a bad position to have. That's actually a good position that's fair to both sides. Israel has the right to defend itself, and the Palestinians have the right to be treated as fucking human beings. That shouldn't be controversial. And yet, of course, articles out there, Bernie Sanders, anti-Israel. Yeah, okay, whatever, dude. Really? All right. Now, here's the thing, right? She adds that the truth of the matter is that these were choices that the DNC had signed off on. Because if they hadn't signed off on the picks, those people wouldn't be on the committee. I'm just saying. Now, in an interview Wednesday, DNC Platform Committee spokesman Dana Vickers-Shelley confirmed that the DNC had not wanted labor leaders on the platform drafting committee, limiting labor's presence to a man named Paul Booth of the American Federation of State, County, Municipal Employees Union. Now, Paul Booth is also a big, surprise, Hillary Clinton donor. Yeah, I know, right? And now that they're saying that, hey man, we got Paul Booth, which has donated a lot to our campaign, by the way, well, good enough. That's all the labor representation we need on a 15-person panel. She said, quote, Vickers says, because union leadership was represented in the full platform committee, a decision was made that no union leadership would be represented in the platform drafting committee. That was communicated to the campaigns, and they understood our rationale. Basically, the rationale being, we don't need any more people from those pesky labor unions. I mean, come on. And DeMoro points out, this is the most insidious thing, frankly, is that only one of the 15 people on this drafting committee is for labor. And it shows you how insidious the DNC has become. Labor built this party. Labor built this country. One person is enough to represent all of that? If you look at the composition of who they chose, besides Bernie's choices, K Street's far better represented than the labor movement. And of course I have some examples. And I did a story in a couple of these people probably about a week back. But so you might hear some names that you've already heard before. But there's more. Now, Debbie Wasserman Schultz had selected former Claire Stores CEO and North Carolina resort and spa owner Bonnie Shaffer of Florida, along with her wife, Jamie Shaffer. They both donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to different Democratic candidates, party organizations, and super PACs in recent years. According to data from the National Institute on Money and State Politics, Shaffer personally gave the maximum annual donation to the DNC from 2013 to 2015, a total of $98,200. And in 2015, she also gave $33,400 to the DNC Service Corporation, which funds the Democratic National Convention. Her wife has given the DNC at least $57,400 since 2009. In turn, the DNC has given more to the Florida Democratic Party than to any other state's party. Ooh, how strange. You get a lot of money from people in Florida, and suddenly the DNC says, we're going to give Florida a lot of money. Now, here's the thing about Florida, right? Right now, the governor there is Rick Scott. He's a fraud. Somebody who stole money from Medicaid. Yeah, he's an absolute fraud, probably the worst governor in the state of Florida's ever had. How a Democrat could lose to Rick Scott, especially when they've got all this money being funneled from the DNC, I have no idea. You'd have to be the worst politician in the world to lose to Rick Scott. Guy that looks like fucking Voldemort. Anyway, let me get back to this. Now, fun fact, Debbie Wasserman Schultz also represents Florida. Yeah. So, and of course, the highest annual donation to the state party in 2012 happened right after Debbie Wasserman Schultz became party chairman. Interesting. Now, in addition, Shaffer and her wife have also given directly to Wasserman Schultz's U.S. House campaigns, at least $15,000 since 2010, and both Shaffers have given the maximum $2,700 to Hillary Clinton's presidential general election campaign. So, yeah, there's that. So you've got very prominent Hillary Clinton and Debbie Wasserman Schultz donors, and suddenly they get very coveted spots on the platform committee. No, you don't get favors for giving money to politicians. You guys, you're crazy. A conspiracy theorist. Money doesn't affect Clinton or Debbie Wasserman Schultz at all whatsoever. except getting key spots in the platform committee. Now, other platform committee choices from both Clinton and Debbie Wasserman Schultz are also close allies of the Democratic establishment, some even having some corporate ties. Clinton's picks include Wendy Sherman, a former State Department employee, Carol Browner, a former EPA administrator and Obama Energy Climate Advisor, that now work for the Albright Stoneridge Group, which is a global strategy consulting firm chaired by former Secretary of State Madeleine Albright. This firm, as I reported previously, touts its ability to win favors and influence with government officials throughout the world on behalf of corporate clients. This is according to reporting from The Intercept. Among its clients are Elliott Management, the hedge fund run by Republican donor Paul Singer. Now, there's another one that I didn't cover. This is former U.S. Representative Howard Berman of California, who was picked by Debbie Wasserman Schultz. He has donated the maximum of $2,700 to Clinton's campaign in this primary, and he is now also a registered lobbyist, currently representing the MPAA. So, there's your picks. Only one guy from labor and no more are supposed to be represented. However, you've got plenty of corporate lobbyists and Clinton donors that happen to represent the majority of this platform committee. Do you not see who they want to represent? If you don't, let me spell it out for you. It's not labor, and certainly not you. But see, this is how the game is played in Washington. This is how money buys you favors, buys you influence, buys you key positions in government or on drafting committees like these, where you can basically create the platform. And guess what? If they end up creating a very pro-corporate platform, odds are Hillary Clinton's going to follow that. That's how the game is played in Washington. That's why we've got to get money out of politics, or else you're going to continue to see people with money getting key positions by donating to political campaigns as well as being lobbyists. We've got to get the money out of politics, man. If you want to see an end to this and actually see a platform built around progressive principles that you and I believe in, then we've got to stop that money. We've got to get it out.